G'day, welcome to Deep and Meaningfuls with Furzey. On this episode, I'm chatting with Clint Davis. Clint's actually a mate of mine from back when I lived in LA, and he has since gone on to start his own company called Capsll. Capsll essentially is a digital version of a time capsule. He's come up with an idea that is a healthier alternative to social media in the way that we currently use it. And you'll even hear there's a moment where I actually get it. I got to say, I'm on board. I think it's a great idea. We talk a lot about the sinister side of social media, the damage that it's doing to us and our children and our minds. The other half of the podcast, we talk about religion. Clint spent pretty much his entire life as a devout Christian. He would even preach in church, in small churches, in massive churches. He was living and breathing it. And he is no longer a part of the church. It's a really interesting story. He's very open and honest about his experience and how he got to where he's at now. And I appreciate him talking about it. This is a really good one. I haven't seen Clint in quite a few years, and it was like no time had passed whatsoever. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Clint Davis. All right, brother. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, man.
Have you done a wee-wee?
No.
Well, do you need to go and...
Yes, I have. Just wanted to see your reaction. How you were going to coach me through that?
Yeah, it's always a good thing when you tell another fully grown man. Now, have you done a wee-wee?
Yes. No, look, it's good to check, you know. There's all kinds of scenarios that you don't. Yeah, no, it's good.
We could be here for 3.5 hours, you know?
Yeah, I think the concerning thing to me more than anything is that it lends to us getting older and actually having to be asked that question at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
exactly, these are long conversations, and our bladders kick in and ruin the day sometimes.
100%. Yeah.
I see that you also have a lava lamp. Great choice.
I was waiting for my moment to bring up exactly the same thing. The only thing is you've outdone me with the disco ball, so at least I have a neon sign. You know, I mean, these are the real battles between men nowadays. We've evolved. Yeah. And this is how we work these things out, you know. You know
that I want a neon sign. You know that I'm jealous of that because that's a custom sign.
It's a custom sign. Yeah. You know, purchased through a very unique site, Amazon.
Amazon. I didn't even think of using Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon does it.
Wow. Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about the sign, man. It's the Capsll sign. Talk to me about Capsll.
Yeah. Preferably that, then you talk about your disco ball. So that's great. So Capsll is so interesting. 3 years of your life, you pour into something, founding a company that you think is, you know, a large part of your life purpose and can really radically affect humanity in a positive direction. And so the question of what is Capsll is so tricky because Capsll becomes you in a way, you know, when you're so driven by a mission. So Capsll's mission started out 3 years ago as a platform that we created to save your meaningful content and pass that forever. So if you think about grandma's photo albums or such things like that, like we haven't solved for the passing of memories and moments in the digital age, which seems absolutely bizarre to me that we've, since the beginning of time, had cave drawings or memoirs or, you know, writers going over great distances to deliver generational letters. And then grandma's photo albums. Then comes the camcorder, and we have this amazing revolution of saving our memories, saving our moments. And that not only draws us into the present, but it also gives us this digital collective of life's most meaningful moments. And then social media entered. And social media has conditioned over a 20-year period a very superficial response in us, which has meant we create content and sacrifice our memories because memories don't belong in a public space. But what has really evolved from us starting out as creating a platform has become more of a mental health situation because the more we've learned along this journey, the more we've learned, firstly, some of the ills of being conditioned over the last 20 years through this human experiment of social media. But two, in that because we don't engage in our meaningful moments anymore, our self-worth is defined by exterior forces like social media, like clicks or likes or comments from somebody who doesn't even know you, right? So when you engage in your meaningful moments, either in the moment or sitting down to actually recap a moment from your life that has value that you'd like to remember and perhaps like to pass on one day, you actually find yourself so engaged in your own story that you have a healthy sense of self-worth, which is the opposite of getting it from social media. You don't get it from social media, but self-worth. And then when you get to share these things privately, you actually get to form authentic connections through commenting privately and sharing meaningful moments privately and such. And then when you get to share those generationally as digital estate, which has never been done before us, you actually start to have the sense of where you fit in the greater fabric of humanity across time, across the ages. So these three areas of connection is what Capsule is. It is a digital platform that, yes, it gives you a space to save your meaningful things, but more importantly, it gives you a way to wholesomely discover your self-worth, authentically connect with those that you care about, your people, and find your place in the greater humanity saga that is playing out. But it's an app that gives you that space to do that.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're able to achieve that for individual people, that's literally the opposite of what standard, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook is making. It's the opposite way that it's making people feel. So
yeah,
it's a big undertaking.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen alarming levels. We all have seen sort of the Social Dilemma movie. Well, we all should see the Social Dilemma movie.
I've been talking about it in the last 3 or 4 podcasts that I've done, and I keep getting the name wrong. The Social Dilemma.
Yeah,
it's a horrifying documentary.
It is. It is horrifying. Yeah, and it should be horrifying. Absolutely should be. And actually, some of the things that we've discovered since then are even more alarming. But that movie helps you.
Like what?
Yeah, well, I mean, initially, like that movie focused on like the alarming levels of loneliness, depression, anxiety, even self-harm in adults, but also in teens and in our kids. And at some point, we have to ask ourselves: is that the legacy that we want to leave behind? But since then, I've obviously being in the space that I'm in, there are a lot of conversations, some of them confidential, but most of them sensitive. And there are algorithms in the platforms that we use. For example, I recently heard of an algorithm in one of the large social media platforms that deliberately pits teenage girls against each other. The algorithm harnesses commenting against each other, spikes it with negative media surrounding to create an echo chamber, and actually pits them deliberately. And the reason they do that is to increase the time spent on the app of those teenage girls. Now, of course, the detriment, I mean, we know, right? I mean, what is that really the society we want to create and want to live in? So there's a lot. It's very dark and it's very organized.
If anyone's listening who doesn't know what that detriment is, teenage girls are like the most damaged by this. I don't know what the statistics are, but it's skewed heavily onto teenage girls. They are the most depressed and the most suicidal since the introduction of smartphones and, more importantly, social media. That is measurably true.
Since is exactly right. Since 2008, and the data is actually through the Social Dilemma, and you can see it's all been done, and it's on their website and all that. But because we don't have a lot of comprehensive studies on things, and that's why the other side of the argument is like, oh, there's not enough data. Well, the reality is, it's 20 years of conditioning. We are at an inflection point of data where we can see the detriment, and these studies are being done, like official, proper studies. And it is, to your point, exactly when social media started spiking is exactly when we start seeing this massive increase, particularly in girls, teenage girls, of self-harm, depression, anxiety. And it's strange that it's not more alarming. It's strange that it's strange. It's so convenient and comfortable, to be on socials.
Yeah, I have a theory on this, and I think that I kind of learned this through all the COVID stuff. Right? And we kind of we've chatted before, and we have a similar take on this. And I think that we, as a society, we have come from an environment where we have been so trusting of the media, the big media, being radio and TV. That's what it used to be, and now much more digital stuff, more online stuff. But we are still in this, have come from this space of trusting that what they say, what we see on billboards, what we hear on the radio, what we hear that is just kind of provided for us, these opinions that are provided for us, that we trust them. Mm-hmm. And what I have learned, I've kind of not so much subscribed to that from a younger age. I think, you know what it is? I'm going a long way around, but I think in high school, my girlfriend cheated on me with my best friend.
Oh, yeah, join the club. Oh, yeah, also with my best friend. Whoa.
No way. Yeah.
That felt good, huh?
Oof, that was, well, that, you know, at the time it was horrible, right? But I'm grateful for the fact that it happened, because it changed the way that I view my place in the world and the world around me. It made me much less naive. It made me ask questions. It made me kind of go, well, hang on a minute. I was sure that this was the way that it was, and everybody else knew. All my school friends knew, yeah.
Everyone it made you listen to Alanis Morissette.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And I'm here. Crying so that kind of rocked me, man. That is one of the things that started me asking questions and made me go, I don't think I can actually trust all of the things that I hear all the time from the people that I maybe should be trusting, like my girlfriend and my best friend, and also the mainstream media. The point I'm getting at is that it seems as though on an individual level, so many people are having one experience, but on a group level, we are being told that individuals aren't having that experience. They're having a different experience. Like I use the COVID thing because we were all told that nobody's not getting vaccinated. Everybody's getting the jab. And if you are the tiny minority that doesn't do it, you are the scum of the earth. But the reality of that is very different. I was not the tiny minority that was the scum of the earth. I've met a lot of people in my life since then that were like, yeah, I didn't get it. I didn't want to do it. And a lot of people that were like, I only did it because I was forced. I felt like I was forced into it. I had to do it so I could go to work. I got to feed my family. This overwhelming feeling of everybody thinks that you're a terrible person if you don't get it is not what the real world experience has been. And I think it also applies to the way people feel about social media. I think lots of people now know that social media is really damaging our children, especially our girls. Of course, us adults as well. We just might have the foresight to be able to go, man, this is making me feel bad about my life. You know, at least we may be able to observe it. But the mainstream is not so much telling us this.
No. They never will.
They're not really talking about how damaging it is.
No, because, I mean, who's profiting? Follow the money, right? I mean, you always got to follow the money. You know, it's what we see in the public eye in terms of like Zucks sitting in front of Congress and that sort of thing. I mean, that's what's allowed to be in the public eye. But, you know, this data isn't sold to no one. This data isn't only sold to like some product that's going to advertise to you on the platform. It's obviously not. I mean, come on, like, you know, we're going through a change of era in humanity. You know, the world is changing. Everything is being readdressed. And one of the things that is being recognized, even though the language hasn't followed yet, is that we are being conditioned on multiple fronts. Social media is one of those conditionings, but there are conditionings that have happened over humanity, you know, just because of belief systems or because of wars or things that we have grown up and lived under these paradigms that are now being questioned. And it has to be questioned because we have to figure out what world we're going to live in moving forward, because things are changing rapidly. And we have questions that we have to answer and not ignore any longer. It takes dire things like this sometimes to, you know, let me back that up. What does it mean, dire things? It takes teenagers committing suicide.
Yeah.
I mean,
at an alarmingly
how
high
far?
level.
Yeah, how far do we have to go as a species before we right a wrong? We have numbers of teenagers committing suicide because of the way social media conditioning works.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so something needs to be done about it. But
and
we
to
also,
your point earlier, you getting an inside look to not only we've been told that is if you do your homework, you can learn that it seems as though that's just an accidental side effect. But you've learned no, it's not. It's not even. It's worse than that.
Yeah.
They're actually doing it. Well, they're not trying to make them kill themselves on purpose, but they're trying to pit these kids against each other.
Yeah.
So they're driving
they're succeeding.
That is so dark.
Yeah. Well, you see, then they take those numbers of how long that demographic stays on the app. The advertisers don't ask how you got them to stay on the app. That's not their business. They just need the metrics. They just need the numbers. So, when you're dealing with something like that, I want to be clear, like I should probably say, like, I'm South African. I was born in South Africa. I lived in the time of apartheid. I saw a country struggle for freedom despite gaining democracy. Two very different things. And my wife and I moved to Dubai in 2008, lived there for 6 years in the Middle East. I was a professional radio host for 17 years, a high performance driving instructor on racetracks at the same time. Did that job in the Middle East in radio and TV and live eventing to 200 nationalities. Then moved to Australia for 2 years on the Gold Coast. And then won the green card lottery at a 0.73% chance to come to America, which we'd wanted to be in for a decade because we felt it was a good place to affect change. And we've been here for 7.5 years. And the reason I say that is because very few people have a story like that they've lived all over the world and seen cultures and been that engaged with cultures and people and trying to connect people. And my heartbeat is connection. But I mention it because when you're listening to something like this or watching something like this, it's important to know that there is a pedigree behind what I'm saying. It's more than just my life over the last 3 years in tech. It is my entire life, my entire professional career of dealing and connecting with people. I was also a theologian along the way and, did a lot in churches. That's not a part of my life anymore, but I know what I'm talking about when I speak about human connection, disconnection, and conditioning. And so what we're finding in some of this change of era is that we are having to take responsibility for spaces that were dictated to us before and that we abdicated responsibility over. And one of those spaces is our online space. Mm-hmm. It goes beyond passwords. You actually need to consider the company that you are dealing with, you are partnering with, you're using their product. And you need to consider your responsibility over that. And your intent with that, or else we're just, going through this gray area of scroll and post because we're just conditioned to do so.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing that really stuck out for me on that documentary, The Social Dilemma, was, I'm pretty sure it was that where they talk about how if you don't have to pay for the service, mm-hmm. then you are the product.
That's right. And that's true in every single business. And yet digital has this intangible to it.
Yes.
That
so
we don't recognize.
So much easier to just sign away your...
Exactly. Imagine, I mean, you can make a meme of it, right? Like imagine a social media in real life. There must be things out there, right? So like, I remember when we used to have the poke button, like back in the day, you could poke someone, and then they made those videos of like real life going up and poking someone. Yeah. Well, I mean, what if somebody did some dumbass who doesn't know you from Adam comes and comments on your post and says whatever they want to say? It's the equivalent, and you feel that, right, in a negative way. It's the equivalent of somebody coming up and saying that to your face or hitting you with a bat or something, If it happened in the physical realm, we would respond to that. But because it's on the digital space, we're like, oh, well, that's the ills of social media. No, it's not. It's disconnecting humanity off the platform. Never mind what happens off the platform. How do we fix that? We can't just throw everything out and say, oh, well, tech now or with social media. Social media has been an experiment for 20 years, and now we need to discover a healthier way to do it. And that's what we're chasing, is what is a healthier way to do this? Because we do want to save our moments. We do want to share them privately. We do want to engage over space and over time because of the tools are there to do it. So somebody's going to like create the next evolution of it. And we should hope that somebody bears the ethical responsibility beyond what we've witnessed to date. And, we think we're that somebody, but it'll take many somebodies to change the landscape of things.
Well, it has to start with that intention, at least, and hope that it can, and that can be maintained. That made me think what you were talking about before about the difference of how it's in real life. There's a stand-up, I think it's a Louis C.K. joke where he's talking about road rage and how, like, when you're in the car and someone cuts you off and you scream at them, it's like, imagine if you do that in real life. You're in an elevator and someone kind of steps in front of you and you're like right here to them. Yeah. And you just in there, you just go, fuck you.
Exactly. In all honesty, how many times do you really want to do that? Like, there's a reason I work from home and I'm happy that the world has gone this way. I love helping people, but there are people, we're difficult, man. We're all like, this is what humanity is. We're all up in each other's space. Doesn't mean we need to annihilate each other over it. If you think about survival of the species, and how fragile we are, shouldn't that be our priority? But man, 100% in that elevator.
Well, and that's what like the social media interaction has become. Like I post some of these, I make these clips from these videos, and I post them on all the places. I post them on TikTok, but I don't spend any time on TikTok. Yeah. It's just a post and ghost. And every now and then, a video will take off and get some kind of views, and there's all these comments, and man, it is poison. It is just so toxic. And here's something else that I learned. Of course, as to your point before, you would never talk to a person in real life like that. You just wouldn't do it. One of the video, like the one that I was talking with a mate, Artie, who's a professional world champion Muay Thai fighter, and people are talking shit on him. It's like, guys, this is a great example. Someone even saying, say it to his face.
Yeah, exactly.
You would never do it. It's just an odd.
You would never.
And it's such an odd thing, and trying to tap into where it's coming from and why people are doing it comes back to the connection thing that you were talking about, and how that severe lack of it is enabling people to do that and feel that they need to and get away with it without repercussions. Because as you said, in the real world, eventually, if you keep doing that, there will be violence. You cannot abuse someone to their face without them standing up for themselves.
Well, that's what we're seeing, right? We're seeing movements that are propagated on these online platforms and then taking place in real life. So people are getting physical. The people that are really driven are getting physical about it in real life, but it may not be directly linked to a post, but it is conditioned into you. This is what we have to realize. Just what happens on social media does not stay on social media. This is not Vegas, baby, right? This is, this is your mind. This is for real, dude. This is. And so when we live in a time where I'm so grateful that we're seeing like these elevated levels of mental health awareness and such, we didn't grow up in that at all, No. But one of the things we should be aware of is that when we are on these platforms, is when we leave that platform, it still holds a strong residual effect on our behavior. And when you're lashing out at your wife, but it's because somebody poked you incorrectly on Facebook, that's not healthy. This relationship is real. That one is fake, but that one is determining your behavior. Then you must figure out why you're being conditioned that way and what you're going to do about it, frankly, because you can't just go and like say, oh, social media is bad. We're going to protest. We're not going to use it. No, because it's affecting humanity on such a great scale. It requires no longer apathy to just leave a platform. It requires a response to do something else.
Yes.
So now you need one of the problems we have at the moment is that we don't have an alternative. Like even people that want to save their stuff on social media, a lot of these
you
moments,
still have to go there to do it.
Yeah. And a lot of these moments are not made for social media. It's grandma's 90th birthday and you don't post that because it doesn't belong there. And also it doesn't look cool. So anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But the reality is that by not posting stuff like that, you're devaluing your moments in life. You're devaluing your memories, and you're no longer capturing them. A lot of people that have left socials or have thought about these things want to still capture that stuff, as we should, because it's innately human in us, and yet don't have an alternative. So we are building an alternative, because I do think that is required in the response, is to have something else. You know, digital addiction is so prevalent. And, you know, we see the rhetoric taking place around like TikTok in the US, and the bills being passed to like potentially ban it, and the back and forth. And I'm not on TikTok either. I don't mind superficial content in social media places. I'm not anti-social media. I'm anti anything that's anti-humanity. Mm-hmm. So social media can be cool for like, you know, superficial stuff and all of that, but it's not for our meaningful moments. So when we start like thinking about how it's impacted us beyond even just the social media aspect, and we consider memory reliability in people, for example, we know that even like first witness accounts and such on trial at juries and such are not reliable, and they can't do a proper study. But some academics go anywhere from 50% to 70% of memory failure. And by the way, I know I've lost total train of thought what I was going to go to earlier, but whatever. This is how I roll. I'm a single child, so you just bear with it. But that memory reliability, like think about it. If you are on a social media platform, for example, and you are echo chambered with particular messaging, with particular things, right? Then you start shaping your memory accordingly. Let me tell you how it happens, right? Yep. You are no longer saving your memories because there hasn't been a digital platform for it. You have nowhere to put it. You can no longer revisit those moments in your life and what you learned, or how what it really was to you, what it meant to you, what the context was. It doesn't exist because you didn't save it, right? Because you were too busy. And I'm just saying, you, for example, you're too busy putting a nice filter on your salad to post, you know. Now, in the meantime, what's happened is not only are your memories unreliable and you have forgotten a lot of them, but you're also getting echo chambered around certain messaging. So you might make a post that says, "Oh, really feeling a bit off today, a little bit depressed." Or guess what you start getting bombarded with? Depression products or depression groups or things like that, to the point that you start getting this reinforced that you are depressed. And then you start getting ads that say, you know, if you went through this as a child, there's a strong chance that you carry this and this and this, which can also cause depression. And then it may even become pharmaceutical, right, or whatever it is. But it starts building this rhetoric within a forgotten memory space that if you had a certain thing happen to you in your past, you inherently react this way, you inherently have this behavior. Now, let's take something like, or any movement, but let's take wokeism, because it's the most recent bizarre behavior and conditioned behavior, in my opinion. Because a lot of people that claim to be woke don't actually know what they're standing for, and a lot of things that they think they're standing for have been stood for from the 70s. So it's a weird space to be in. But you can literally have somebody who has this memory gap in their life, but was traumatized, for example, and now been bombarded into an echo chamber to believe that because they were traumatized a certain way, they fit in with a certain group of people and should behave a certain way now. Meantime, that might not have been part of their initial story whatsoever. It's just filled in with your mind through the echo chambering that has been happening to you. So it's a pretty, and I ran this past a psychoanalyst and psychotherapist recently, and he was like, "Yeah, it's absolutely conditioning. It's exactly how it works. It's preying on us." So then, is the fix to not use it at all and continue not saving our memories? Or is the fix to start saving our memories so that we can refer to them back? Because there is such a thing in the brain called neuroplasticity, where if you sit in a memory, let's say a memory that you deemed to be a negative memory, you can actually do therapy work to sit in that memory, recall it, and actually realize, oh, it actually wasn't as bad as I thought, or, oh, I learned these lessons, look how strong I am now, or, oh, wow, that didn't actually happen how I did, maybe I should reconnect with so-and-so, that wasn't such a thing. The value of human connection in just being able to recount our memories in reality, in context, with our voice recorded by us, is profound.
Wow, really? Yeah, that's such a strong point about getting in touch with what the actual, not even memory, what actually happened, rather than what our memory has turned it into, even without any external stimuli trying to squeeze us into one direction or the other. Our memory just does that.
Yeah.
And then, you have all this other stuff around you telling you that means you are this.
Yeah. So conditioning is really the thing, right? I mean, conditioning people, and there's many ways that people get conditioned. Religion, politics, college life. I mean, the American thing.
I just recently did, on the weekend, I got back I did this 3-day men's retreat, and it was out it was about an hour away from where I live, and there was I had no service. Some of the guys had service, but I had none on my phone. So I used one of the other guys' phones to text my wife to let her know that I was fine. And she'd said before I even left, she said, I think you should don't call me unless you really need me, and I won't call you unless there's a problem. Just have full immersion and go in. So that was the intention anyway.
Mm.
But the fact that I had no service meant I couldn't even go on social media or do anything.
Mm.
And I observed a couple of things. I've known this already, that I want to have a healthier relationship with my phone, which just means we need some space.
It's not me, it's you.
Legitimately, yeah. Well, it's my relationship with you. And I the first day and a half, I really found myself wanting to check my phone, and even took my phone with me all over the place. And I was like, why? I can't call anyone. I'm listening to things. I'm doing things. I can't use it, but it's just a safety net. And I would check a bunch of times to see if I had service. And then eventually I just would leave it and had no connection with it. And the connection that I made with these guys, there were 15 of us, was so deep. I've made lifelong friends from doing this weekend. Now, granted, a lot of that's from the work that we were doing. We were going there to kind of handle our shit and purge some stuff and some self-growth. But having no relationship to my phone really kicked in when I got back home. And Laurel had told me that one of the reels that I put up had done well, got a bunch of views on Facebook. And I was like, oh, cool. And so I checked it, and there's all these comments. And immediately this feeling rushed over me of anxiety. And I was like, hang on, I haven't had this for 3 days. This is directly related to my social media. And I was able to kind of detach from it, because it was so clear what that feeling, that is a pretty familiar feeling that just comes and goes in waves of life, was directly related to my experience with that. I came back feeling so free and connected to other people, connected to my wife and daughter. And then that wave of anxiety and constriction came the moment I went on to, it was Facebook, and looked at all these comments.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
It was a real kind of aha moment. And the other thing I wanted to say about what you were talking about is there's something that has moments of achieving what you're trying to achieve with Capsule, which is randomly by accident, I pushed the wrong thing on my phone and it comes up with the Photos app where it makes do you have an iPhone?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it
is
makes
there another kind of phone? I didn't know.
Good. You know, there's something.
Is there another brand?
Yeah. Someone goes, no, I've got a Samsung. That's fine.
Apple users have to be snobbish to some degree.
Yeah. It's fine if you don't have an iPhone. It's fine.
Yeah.
Send you a
telegram, mate.
Yeah, you'll be right. You'll be all right. Things will get better. There's the photo app makes these memories, and I clicked on one the other day, and it said something like family by the shore, because we used to, at our old place, we used to live at the beach. And so I clicked on it, and it played this silly, random song and with emotional music and this little slideshow of all these photos that I had taken that I never look at of me and my family. And it made me cry.
Yeah.
And it was private. They were private photos. I haven't shared any of them online. And that's happened to me a couple of times.
Yeah.
Where it's curated something that has been And this is just the algorithm doing it, like just seeing that, oh, there's water there. I know that's the beach. I'm going to put that in the slideshow. But that's what I think of when I think of what you're doing. Does that kind of sound like the right kind of place?
So, yes, but let's here's the difficulty,
with intention.
Right? Yeah. With intention. Yeah. Exactly right. Because we have to see the conditioning. It's difficult. It's work, because we have been, just think about how long we have lived under this paradigm. And one of the problems is exactly like you say, the intent. So when you take a picture, right? When we launched Capsule, we launched that you could put picture, audio, or video up on the platform in these private capsules. Create as many capsules as you want, fill them, and then whoever you add to each capsule can see the content in that capsule.
Okay, so that's the format. It's
the format.
It's a time capsule for whoever.
Time capsule, yeah. And you control it. You can have one for yourself, one for just you and your wife, one for you and some friends, whatever you want. And then within that, you can also decide who has permission to pass it on forever. So it's the first time digital legacy estate has ever been offered forever, is what we do. And we contract this with our users and everything. So what we realize is, as soon as somebody would upload a picture, they would have a superficial response to that content. So they would either just upload the picture, or they would just put a description that like didn't really mean anything. It's kind of like when you have a photo from back in the day and somebody would write on the background, here's on the back of the picture, right? Here's Granddad with Uncle Jim. Well, who the hell's Uncle Jim? Like, never heard of Uncle Jim. We don't have Uncle Jim. That's immediately worthless to you. Okay, so that filter, when filters came in on social media, it started this whole snowball effect. And so pictures, filters, this is one of the things that has made us lose our intent behind our content, because what you hold in your hand doesn't only take pictures. What you hold in your hand takes video. Now, video can have your voice. It can have your thought, your intent, your meaning. So instead of a picture like, oh, here we are at the beach, why wouldn't you take a video going, hey, I'm here with so-and-so and so. This is the first time Julie's ever been to the beach. How does it feel, Julie? What do you think? Oh, yeah, wow, it's amazing. I remember the first time I went to the beach. Okay, now you're in memory space. You save that. And when you look back on that, that has meaning. When you save it in the moment like that, you're being present. You're being present with your people, because you're also not going to need to take that phone out and take 30 pictures to find the best one. You're recording a moment with intentional meaning behind it that is meant to be human. It is not meant to be polished and perfect. If you were to sit down and record a story from your past, you would find the effect that it's the same as sitting with an old school friend, where you speak about one thing and then you remember, oh, wow, I would never have remembered this if we didn't meet up and have a coffee. Remember when so-and-so did this? You actually go through this process just recording your own story to your phone. Now, the level of self-worth attached to it is hard to explain. It's something you've never felt on social media ever. And you can practice it, even though Capsule is not currently live because we're building the final version to release later this year. Just take your phone out, give yourself 10 minutes, with nobody around, set your phone down in front of you. Think of a story that you'd like to tell. Might have been a time you went to the beach, might have been a big accomplishment you had in your life, might have been a tough time that you learned something from, and just let it flow into your video camera. Just record the story as you would tell it. And what you'll notice is when you stop that, you'll have relating memories. And that means that you're remembering memories that you've probably forgotten. And that gives you more and more meaning to your journey or your life journey, the only one journey you get to live. Right? And yet we don't recount our journey. I mean, it's madness. We're each writing our favorite book of our lifetime for ourselves, and none of us are remembering the chapters.
So what you're trying to access is a journaling, like a video, like legitimate video journaling.
In a way, yes. If that's what it is to you, then that's what it is to you.
Because proper journaling is deep. We can do superficial journaling where we just say, this is what I did. Yeah. But when you get into, and this is how it made me feel. Yeah. That's when it becomes,
and then
because
you might share that with some people that you trust to that degree. Yes. You might share other things with other people to the degree that you trust them.
Yes.
This is how humanity works, standard in real life. We trust people. people connect at the economy of trust.
Mm-hmm.
At every level.
Man, this is the thing that we all, me and these other 14 men, learned on this men's retreat on the weekend was we were all strangers.
Yeah.
And we were put into exercises and exercises that were intentionally there to encourage us to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I come from a creative background. I've done a fair bit of acting. I make a lot of music. Yeah. And so I'm a little more comfortable and familiar with being vulnerable. Some of these guys are not.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys are hard dudes. You know, they're tatted up guys. They're tradies. They work with trucks and with macho men all the time. And they aren't vulnerable. And
yes.
And we all really dived into it, into these exercises that helped us to be vulnerable and to be vulnerable around each other. That is what endeared us to each other. And now I have, as I said, I have lifelong friends.
Yeah.
And it comes from us being comfortable enough to be vulnerable. And what you're talking about is a digital version of being able to go, I know who's going to see this. I know who this is for. And I know that I'm doing this with intent rather than trying to get likes or trying to get shares.
That's right.
It feels on its face value like a place where you can be vulnerable. And it seems as though that is the intention from the creator yourself.
Yeah.
Which it's a great start. It's a really good start.
I think honestly, founding a company is very difficult. I didn't know anything about it when I started.
It is.
I mean, it's brutal, dude. And founding a company in a tech space that's gone through the worst economic downturn, even worse in 2008, in America is even harder. You know, there's a lot of sacrifice that goes into this. A lot, like really a lot. It's hard, and you have to grow with it. You have to become better versions of yourself every day, certainly every week, and it shapes you and it costs you a lot of your current life experience because you're committing to this thing. You're basically committing to move the needle on 30 years of work in 5 years. That's what you're trying to do, and you're trying to bring something in its purity. And along the way, through the pressures of such a financial difficult time, you have to stay true to the mission that you believe you want to bring. And that can only come from the suffering, from the difficulties, from the character, from the strengths that you have built in your own life through facing difficult times. And if there's anything that I believe, and you have to be bold. I have to be bold to say, look, I know that your trust has been broken by social media because my trust was also broken by social media. And I know that you need somebody new to trust in this space. And I know that there's no way I can ask you to trust me. But I can ask you to come on a journey with me of understanding that affects not only you and me, but affects the whole of humanity and future generations with our kids. And if you come on that journey with me, it's my job to honor that trust, to give you a space that's safe, to give you a way that's private, and to give you something that has meaning. And along the way, anything that offers me an easy way out from that mission, even if it means more comfort for us in our personal lives, my founder and I, it can't happen. It has to stay pure. And the reason it has to be pure because what you've actually put on the altar of that project is the overcoming of all the difficult times that made you who you are, both before this journey and in this journey. And if you sacrifice those, you lose a big piece of yourself. So you have to stay pure to it. My personal genesis story on Capsll is simply because of my radio years and my wife and I living in all these different countries, which were each done on a zero budget. We just moved to a lot of them to help people, to help friends. But it was hard, There were times in LA when we met where, I was sitting in a 450 square foot studio apartment that we were paying $1,700 a month for, thinking we were coming to America, the land of milk and honey, where we would pick up easy jobs because we were both in entertainment, and we moved to LA and didn't know anything about the college intern system. So that really got us. because all the scrapper jobs that we thought we'd get were taken by non-paid students. And so, we know the work we ended up doing, which is like just grunt work,
Tray passing.
Tray passing and such. And this is after I've been a professional radio host on commercial stations in multiple countries. Now we're passing hors d'oeuvres around to people that used to beg me to come on my radio shows, or that caliber of person.
The highest paying gig we could get.
Yeah. And you're an actor.
That was one of the best.
Yeah, that was one of the best. And you're an actor and you're surrounded by actors, but you're not in your purpose. It's very difficult. It's emotionally difficult. And so anyway, all of those times, what my wife and I learned through those times, those became the important things to save. Why are we the people that we are right now? Those are the things that I want to pass. Those are the things I want to hold on to. Those are the things I want to focus on. And on the other side of the spectrum,
below the surface things.
Yeah, man. And the deep and meaningfuls.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on the other side of the spectrum, I wanted to hear my grandfather's stuff. Like he was an orphan who became a CEO, a very influential CEO in South Africa in his day, but he passed many years ago. And I think about the conversations we had. I think about the arguments we had. And now being older, I can see his perspective. And I wish I had more of his life so that I could, I guess in a way, feel free of some of my youthfulness around him that led us to not see eye to eye, or find encouragement in how I do business or see these things. And so I tried to record a private podcast to save that, and then realized we need a new space. So it really did stem from a very deep personal desire to have my stuff in a safe space, and my co-founders the same. And so we are building something for us and asking people to join us. We're not building something to make a profit off people.
Man, the value of what you are doing has just kicked in for me, for that story you told me about your grandpa, because it just it reminded me of my grandfather. He was my mum's dad. He was always a really good man to me. He's passed now, and he was really supportive of me, and we always got on really well. He would come to all my soccer games and my cricket matches, and he was just a good man. And he was in the Second World War. He was in The Great Escape.
No way.
And yeah, man, he was there, and was part of digging the tunnels. He wasn't one of the ones that was chosen to escape, but he told me stories about how he would one of his jobs was they would put the dirt in their socks, and they'd have the socks down the inside of their pants.
Shawshank deal, man.
Yeah, bro. They'd have and then they would have a little mechanism, like a piece of string or something, to pull on the sock so that it would let a little bit of dirt out, and they'd stomp it around the yard so that no one saw them.
That's wild. It's wild.
And I sat there once, because he never talked about it with my mum or his immediate family. And then I got to one point when, he was an old man at this time, and I would ask him questions about his time in the war and as a POW. And he opened up to me and told me all about it one time. And I've forgotten it. I've forgotten the details.
I know, mate.
I put it into a song, and at one point, but there's only so much detail you can put in that. But I was just thinking, man, imagine if I had a capsule of him from, how long ago would it be? Man, it might be almost 20 years ago now when he told me that. To sit and watch that and listen to his account, or at least my account of what he had said, would be so valuable, so deeply valuable, because it's accurate, and it is a time capsule. You look back and go, oh man, look how young I was, look where I was, look what I was doing. And
that's right.
Yeah, mate. Man, that's really hit home.
Yeah, it does hit home. It's deeply human.
Yeah.
And what you feel is, you thinking about your grandfather, what you're actually feeling is a sense of connection to yourself, to your heritage, and that's innately human, and we're losing it. And so, we're at a massive deficit of these stories, a massive deficit. That's why the pressure we feel as a startup, and we're raising money right now to refactor the app, go to market with everything we've learned, all of that. And you can join the waitlist on our website, subtle punt. But the thing is that we're running at a deficit. We've forgotten a lot of memories already, right? Yeah. And the generation before us hasn't saved their memories, or they might be saved in photos or something that's not going to last. So we have work to do, because even though you don't have the first person accounts from your grandfather, the onus is on you, should you care about it, to actually sit down and record everything you do remember about your grandfather, and to ask whoever else you have alive right now to give you some of those stories so that you can pass it to your kids and you have at least something.
Yes.
Right? I sat with my grandmother when I went back. She just turned 90 the other day. I sat with her when I went back to South Africa last, and I just said, put some tea on. We're gonna just have conversation. And I put the phone on the table, angled at her, not pretty or anything, just angled at her. And I just asked her questions. I asked her about my grandfather. I asked about her. I asked about their lives. I asked about what it was like in that time of the world and all these things, man. Like, and I've got it, and it's on my phone because Capsule's not live at the moment. And dude, all of our team feels so much pain because we had these memories saved on Capsule while we did the 2 years testing. And now we don't have anywhere to put them again. And the harsh reality is that Google Drive deletes your stuff after a certain amount of time without informing you. You go check it out. We have countless people coming to us about lost stuff because they didn't open the file for 2 years or whatever it is, and it's just deleted. They don't have to notify you either. When you upload stuff to Facebook, we know that's not a place for meaningful stuff, but it also belongs to a lot of these companies once you upload it. Capsule still belongs to you. You can click a button and leave it any time. But the reality is that it still comes down to the fact that whether it's on one of those platforms or whether it's on your phone, it's not saved and secure permanently. 68% of what we have on our phones right now, true stat, not made up, will be lost. 68% of what's on your phone right now will be lost. So it's
that's too much.
It's like when I come back to it, is a responsibility of ours to start saving our stories, both for the archive of human history. And I think if we get done what we want to do with Capsule, it'll become the most valuable repository of personal human experience and insight the world has ever seen. But shouldn't we have that? Shouldn't we have that shared privately with our own families and such? Shouldn't we have that as a human right, basically? It's like these are the things that wake me up at night. Like, it does seem like an insurmountable mountain to climb, but one person at a time, saving the memories. Let's say humanity, let's say all of our archives, all of our digital world, let's say, I don't know, let's say that really is what's shaping the way we connect and our health and our well-being. Then shouldn't we be considering what we're using, what's feeding us, what's healthy, what's not healthy? I mean, we know it impacts our brains. We know it impacts our outward actions,
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I think this is you're working on filling a much bigger hole than people realize. And even me, just in this conversation, I've realized the value of it. I thought, this sounds like a great concept, but it actually is really valuable. It's really valuable, man. And you keep talking about connection, which is a really, that's one of those other things that people don't realize is kind of the key to happiness.
Yeah, well, I loved your episode with Evan Mayer. Man, what a great conversation.
He's an insightful man, isn't he?
Phenomenal. Well, you did a great job as well. It's exactly. It's amazing how many people are talking about connection now and what the state of mental health awareness is in the world. It's great.
Yeah. It's and I think I said it in that podcast, but my friend who had struggled with addiction for a long time, and he said to me when he was in a good place, the opposite to sobriety, the opposite to addiction is not sobriety.
Mm-hmm.
It's connection.
That hit me. I finished the episode today, and that hit me when he said that.
Yeah.
Isn't it so true?
Yeah, it is. It is because he just felt and do you know who Gabor Mate is?
No.
Oh man, you'll get so much out of this dude's work. He's old now and he's so wise, and he's like a trauma specialist. And he talks so much about connection and what the nature of addiction really is and how we can actually not treat it, but transcend it. And it all comes from connection. It's all connection.
Interesting.
Yeah. Gabor Mate, if you get a chance, I'll send you some stuff on him. He's really
interesting. Oh, I just remembered what I was going to say earlier. Sorry, This is how my brain works.
Me too, man. You've just got to cling on to these ideas for dear life.
Yeah. Now stop that. You're going to make me forget again. Just let me roll here. We were speaking about TikTok, and we were speaking about the US thinking about banning it and what the steps they've made to that. Here's the thing that I posted about it, because I said I'm not a TikTok user. That's just superficial stuff. It's not a space I've ever been on.
Yeah.
But I think the bigger conversation is this, and it's because you mentioned addiction that it's sparked that recollection. But when people are addicted to a digital platform, it is the same as a physical addiction to a substance. Yeah. And so if you come in and just take that away, what do you end up with? You are actually really, really facing some damaging consequences. And again, it comes back to the same problem. There must first be an alternative. There must first be a healthy alternative for it in order to connect, because people are conditioned to believe that they are connected because of social media, when we all know that is not real connection. But you can't tell an addict that is not serving your purpose, because that does not translate whatsoever. So we have to look at how we help people, not just slay the dragon.
Man, and this is a Gabor Mate thing. He talks about when I talk to someone who is an addict, I don't ask them about the bad things. I ask them about what are the good things about it. What did gambling, for instance, or alcohol or heroin, how did it make you feel? What did it give you? And then these people will inevitably talk about ways that it made them feel free in their life. It made them feel unencumbered, and it made them forget about their troubles, and it gave them an outlet. It made them feel connected to themselves rather than ashamed of themselves or whatever negative emotions they were dealing with. And this social media has become I've been noticing it recently, probably in the last 6 to 12 months, it's become so potent.
Yes, man. I've seen the same. Like, I never used to click on comments or anything, but I thought, let me see the state of things. Yeah. What is going on?
It's potent. And the potency of what people are saying, how they're responding, and the potency of the content itself in how addictive and engaging it is. It's like, the analogy that I can think of is like with cannabis, right? Like when we both lived in Los Angeles. I'm not sure what the legality of it is in you're in Texas?
I am in Texas.
Yeah. But we
got like the deltas and that sort of deal.
It's nearly there.
And anything else I won't confess publicly.
Yeah. No comment. Yeah.
I have no comment.
It's like the plant. Okay, the plant. There was the 60s, the stoner movement of the 60s, right? And people would grow the plant the way the plant grew, and people knew how to grow it, and it grew. And if you could analyze what the breakdown of different terpenes and cannabinoids was back then, and compare that to the way that it's grown now, it is drastically different. Like back then, it was relatively low THC, and there was a bunch of other things in there, and it works together in symbiosis. There's the entourage effect of these things. They interact with each other, and that is the experience. So that people, you talk about like Cheech and Chong and all these guys, like, wow, they used to smoke so much weed. Yeah, because it was a way less potent thing. They could do it because it didn't fuck them up so much.
Okay.
Whereas now you can go to the weed store and they tell you exactly how much of each thing is in there. And I was always interested in a compound called CBD, which is, if it's just CBD on its own, you don't feel any psychoactive effects whatsoever.
Yeah.
What I learned is if there is a strand of cannabis that has high CBD and relatively low THC, any of those negative things that you get from smoking weed is kind of gone. And
Yeah.
what I realized is it's the THC. That's the thing that is the drugs part. And that's the thing that has just been so celebrated. And like how we need to get this weed that's like 30% THC and 0% everything else. It's just turned into crack. You know, it's drugs. And it's become so potent. And it's like that is what has happened to social media. I feel like that's the best analogy I can have. It started off so innocent. It started off with Instagram, like, oh, this is this
did
thing
it though?
where,
Did it though? I mean, Facebook certainly didn't. I mean, you look at Zuck's ethos for starting Facebook, wasn't that innocent? But I know what you're saying. It was meant to connect us.
At least it felt innocent from the user's
when we
perspective.
joined. Yeah.
Maybe I think you're right. But at least from our perspective, that it didn't feel dirty. It felt exciting, and I didn't feel shit about my life after using it.
Yes, and it helped us connect to people when we were both living in different countries. It helped us connect to people across the globe. There are those pros, absolutely.
Yeah. And it seemed as though it was at least, it played more innocent, and you could get involved, and there was just less of this, like, at least for me as a user, desire and requirement for me to go on this because it's the best. It just gives me these hits of pleasure. It wasn't like that.
Poke.
Yeah. You'd log on at a certain time and it would be on your computer.
Yes,
and you'd go there.
That's right.
And you'd go, I might go on Facebook for a bit. And you'd spend a bit of time, however much time, reply to comments, look at things, and then you'd get on with your life.
Yeah.
Whereas fast forward to 24, and now we're in this place where it's with you all the time. You're whipping your phone out. You're constantly doing things.
Yeah.
And it's just sucking you into it. It's just so potent.
It's very potent.
Yeah. To the point where I've observed how it's become like a drug addiction, and I don't want to be addicted to it. I don't want that.
No, it is 100%.
100%
100% addictive. Absolutely. And not only is it addictive, but it's targeted addiction.
Yeah.
So we must understand this is not our fault.
Yes.
Right? It is our fault to the point that we have abdicated our authority over it.
Yes.
But it's not our fault in that there are algorithms that are very detailed, very specific, with a lot of therapy behind it that are deliberately there to get you. I've met a few people that their marriages are really struggling because one of the parties is so wrapped up in the fight, either pro or against Palestine or Israel on social media. And the more they get engaged, the more they get bombarded with the stuff, the more it affects them emotionally, the more they're getting detached from their own families. And, I've met with a guy who he was like, I don't know what to do about my marriage. I don't know what to do about my wife, this and this and this. And I went down all of these things and then said, she just sits on the phone the whole time. It's always Palestine, always Palestine, always Palestine. And I was like, let's just for one moment consider that she is also a victim. That she is not separating from you deliberately because she's choosing Palestine, but she is algorithmically targeted to spend more time on the app. Palestine just happens to be the flavor of the week.
Yeah.
But her separation is not from you. She is a victim. And if we can understand that, then, it's a different approach. We're not finger pointing anymore. We are trying to help people. We are trying to get people to live a human life. I mean, in the arts, what has your relationship been with social media like? Because it seems to me like, you can be the best artist out there, but if you're not posting pretty pictures, it's hard to gain a following on social media, never mind how good of a musician or actor you are, Yeah.
It's for me, what I'm coming to terms with is that the landscape for being a musician is just completely and utterly changed. I saw there's a video that came up on my Instagram feed yesterday of a guitar player I follow. His name's Jared James Nichols. He's a killer blues guy. He's a big jacked up dude, and he plays with his like shredding, but he uses his fingers. He's got no pick, so he's an interesting guy.
Yeah.
And he had done a video. He's smart. He knows what he's doing because he does a lot of collaborations with YouTubers. So he was on this guy's channel who has a YouTube channel called Music Is Win. And I can't remember I think his name's Tyler. And he is a Berkeley music grad, phenomenal musician, knows music so well, a really great, beautiful, tasty guitar player. and he's got a big YouTube channel. He's gone, okay, how am I going to use my credentials? Well, I'm going to go to YouTube. And he's a genius for doing it. He could go out and try and be a session guy, or he could go and start a band or do this other, but he's a YouTuber. And Jared, this guy who is a touring recording musician, knows that is a big audience to tap into. It's not about trying to get on the radio or about the old guard of how you get noticed. He knows that that's where the eyes and the ears are. And it was very interesting to see that he's collaborated with this dude, and it's just a different landscape.
Yeah, I've got a friend who made an app called Stationhead. They're about 8 years in now, and they're making big waves. Stationhead was built by Ryan Starr, who's also a musician, and also got tired of like having to play the social media game in order to prove he's a real musician. And what they've done is they've created an app that gives kind of like a radio experience. So artists can come on, release their albums, release their tracks, but also connect with fans live in a chat, or they could bring them up to actually speak to them like a radio show. But it's all on app. And it's pretty amazing because you can now go to a release party with your favorite artist, A-list. They had Beyonce on there recently. They had, all kinds of artists. And you can actually be part of the experience and that close connection. Again, it's connection. But what's fascinating to me about it is that instead of trying to change the industry from the top down, and now they've got like record labels bringing their artists to them to release parties and that. So like the power, it's been recognized that there's a power shift going on. And the power shift is this, that it's not just about that recognition. It's about starting from the people upward, starting from the voice upward, the numbers. Where the numbers put their vote, that's where the attention goes, and that's where the traction goes. And so when we are each a number, we need to do that in other spheres like social media. We need to put our vote in other places that are healthier. And that's our approach. We're not interested in taking on Facebook or taking on Instagram or any of that. I mean, same company. We're not interested in taking it because we're an alternative. We're not social media. And
good luck trying to do that anyway.
And exactly. And I'm realistic. Like that's not, who's going to get that? Nobody's going to get that right. They're dismantling themselves to some extent anyway in humanity. And I think the way the conscious levels of humanity are growing, it's only going to filter some of that stuff out more. I hope. I'm optimist.
I definitely think it is. I think it is. I think there are groups of people who are just going, especially young folks, who are just like, I feel like I don't need this. I feel like this is bad, and I'm going to step away from this.
Yeah, give me my old flip Motorola back.
Dude, you know what? I've got this idea. Yeah, you joke about it, but I'm like, I've got this idea that is, I've thought about doing that, and the reality of doing that is just not practical because there's certain things that I need, like maps and
sure, yeah.
And but what my plan is to transfer all of the things that I find to be poisonous from my smartphone onto my iPad, and keep my smartphone as a simple smartphone. So I've got my maps and I've got all the, Spotify and those kind of things. But any of the stuff that is a bit yuck, like the Facebook and the Instagram and TikTok and all those things that make me feel a bit worse about my life, put them on my iPad and do them at a dedicated time like I used to on my computer with Facebook back when it first came out, so that I have my social media time. I don't take it with me. Yes. When I'm in line at something, or even like to the point where I'm stuck in traffic. I'm in the car and there's a red light. Oh, I'll just quickly do it. That's what's going on, man. I've been hacked, and I can see it and feel it, and I don't want that. So that's the, I'll do it this week. I'm setting the intention. I'm going to do it this week.
Yeah,
I'm going to transfer that stuff onto my iPad, and I'll do it. I'll allocate some time. I'll do my posts. I'll all that stuff, and then it's on the iPad. I can't take it with me.
Yeah. Yeah, mate. I can't wait for you to be on Capsule when it goes live again, because what you'll realize is when you get off a place like that without any ads and without being bombarded, you actually feel at peace. When you save a memory, you actually leave going like, wow, I feel so fulfilled that memory is saved and I could look at it any time. And I wasn't bombarded by all the noise or by some weirdo sliding into my DMs or making a public comment about something. You feel at peace and you feel responsible, like you've taken responsibility over your future self Think about that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, what a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And instead of, I wonder what people I've never met before are going to think about this, and I hope the world's going to love
Yeah.
me, it will be, I can't wait to see what this person that I love thinks about this, even if that's just me in 5 years' time.
That's right. That's right. That's right,
connection.
man. It's important. And, I think like in this change of era and what's going on, there's conditioning that comes from many different aspects. And I think we're learning what needs to be reassessed. And we see a lot of shift happening in many different things. The two areas that I am very knowledgeable about is obviously tech, where I'm right now, and then obviously religion and Christianity and faith, for which I was a part of Western Christianity for 37 years. I was a theologian for over a decade and was in churches from 30 to 30,000. And yet now I don't associate myself as a Christian, certainly not in the Western sense. I think if anybody were to ask me, are you a Christian? I'd want to ask them, what do you mean by that? What is your paradigm of that? Because it seems very convoluted. Everybody has a different paradigm. And we know that there's different denominations, all these things. But when it comes to conditioning, it's hard to see conditioning in one thing like the tech space and not start picking it up in another space. And my other space is that religion space, and so I think as humanity, we're really going through this interesting space where everything's getting reassessed. Even governments are getting reassessed, and all these things. Do these models work? Are we paying tax 5 times over? What's going on here? So it's a very interesting time to be alive, but it requires our response. It requires our engagement.
It's
20 years of apathy is costing us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite fascinating to me that you are where you are with this when it comes to religion, because it's how did you? So can you talk me through that? What was your upbringing with Christianity, and how did you get into it, and how did you get in so deep?
Yeah,
I guess it was providing you meaning, right? Obviously, deep meaning at the time.
Yeah, it was. And it's the same. Let me say this because I've probably upset some people already. So let me just set a understanding for you. I don't believe Christianity to be wrong. I do believe it to be narrow. So within the narrowness of Christianity, yes, it provided me some really good things. It provided my wife and I some really good things, some really good connection when we moved countries, some community, some understanding and such. We definitely grew closer to a divine being or God or however you understand that. I definitely found purpose through it. And yes, I was deeply, deeply involved. How did I get drawn to it initially? I was raised with a Christian mom.
So there wasn't a lot of choice from your
I don't think
side
there
of things.
was. Yeah, and I don't think she had a lot of choice. And I actually think that most leaders in Christian churches right now, pastors and such, also don't have a lot of choice. I think there's a very strong conditioning that has happened. When I look through the history of the Christian church, East and West, when it split in the 1600s in Europe, and what transpired in terms of who took what in that kind of divorce, and all the mystical side of God stayed in the East, and all the structural methodology came to the West. And we see, I believe it was Constantine implementing that in order to control population groups, because religion was such a fundamentally strong force to do that with. And then we see it water down into Western culture and be dominated by consumerism and by comfort and things, which were never the original understandings of the faith. And you start to pull on that thread a little bit of how much it's changed and what we believe versus what originally was probably true, and how much of it we just don't know because we don't have context for it. And I can go on and on about how it fits into the massive landscape of human history of 22,000 years, and yet we only believe a book that's been reliable for maybe 1,000, maybe 1,200. We just consider all of these elements, then you start to recognize the conditioning behind it. And when you grow up in a Christian country as a Western white person, and you have a Christian family, then that is what you do, because that moral bias is everything. It's everything that you are in your identity connected to that family. Now, I get that not everybody goes that way. Some people rebel. And you know what? I used to frown on them, and now I'm like, wow, good on you, mate. Like, well done. I mean, free thinking at that age is pretty amazing, But I just, it became, I guess, the first safe space for me. And using the talents that I felt that I had and that I developed through speaking and through being able to think and unravel thought and things, I just went full tilt and became very, very good at propagating that message. But when I look back, I can see the conditioning all the way through.
Okay.
I can see what you're sometimes directly told, sometimes just implied, what you're allowed to listen to, what you should watch, what you shouldn't watch. I never listened to any hard rock growing up because it was from the devil.
Right.
I didn't listen to Chris Cornell, for example. And now I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, this is one of the greatest musicians,
Yeah, man.
For what reason, So things like that. And you start recognizing all the time that you spent in meetings because you were, in a very real sense, guilted into being there. How your identity tied into what you were doing in a sermon on a Sunday, There's a lot of it. And I'm still going through a lot of the process. I think, 37 years is a long time. So
how old are you now?
I'm 45 now. And so it's a long time and it's a lifetime. And I think one of the things that happened when I started realizing that this was too narrow and there's more to the divine and more to life and more to spirituality and more to the convergence of the spiritual and physical realm in our human beings than just mere Western Christianity. And I started to process that. I actually went to my pastor, who was a friend of mine as well. And, I'd been preaching in their church and such. And another friend, I had them for lunch and I said to them, I'm going to step out of church for a while. I mean, being a theologian, and I had always for over a decade, I had preached that the church would face this time of reformation. If they didn't embrace change inside the walls, it would happen externally. And that's exactly what's happening now. The world is coming to a higher consciousness and the church is being left behind, becoming stagnant. Although many are leaving church as well. The stats are actually incredible. But when I came to that point, I met with them. I said, come on this journey with me. I want to discover these things that I've been told. And I don't feel I can do that while I'm sitting on a Sunday with the different rhetorics coming a different way. And the way my brain works is really tiring. So I'm going to take a few months. I'm going to look at this and I'd love to stay in touch. Dude, like the level of disconnect that happens when you leave a church, and I hadn't even left yet, is astounding. This is a foundational premise that is absolute, that you need to be saved in order to enter heaven. And it is absolute that if you are not, as Christian language would go, walking with the Lord, then you have backslidden. And then it gets into some tricky water. Some people will say, well, now you're not going to heaven anymore. Some people will say heaven is forever, no matter how lost you are. And they'll go to parables and all these things. And I know if you're listening to this, I know you pull out the lost son and all of that stuff. And that's fine. The context of the Bible is something we can discuss in another breath. But when I came to that point and realized, oh, wow, people are easily separating, not checking up on me, and yet they believe this is something dire to my soul. What's going on here? Do we not believe this? Do we not have real, authentic community that we feel we can reach out to somebody and just ask them, hey, why? What are you learning? Like, I'm a theologian, mate. I've preached around the world. I've done my time, and yet nobody reaches out and go, as a theologian who has planted churches, ministered all over, been in all these scenarios, what are you seeing that we're not seeing? There was none of that. And that then starts opening.
But these are questions that they don't, that it seems as though you are asking questions that are dangerous, that do not want the answers. They do not want to hear the answers because these are.
And so we must ask ourselves who they're dangerous to. and why, and what is keeping that control mechanism from people living freely and discovering their own thoughts. Surely if God is big enough, you're not going to get lost just like that, and loving enough. So when I then decided to actually formally leave the church, I had about 3 or 4 months of what can only be described as mourning. And I ended up mourning because I'm coming to this realization of these control mechanisms, but also dealing with the goodness that it gave in my life over that period.
Yeah.
But then realizing how much incorrect stuff I had preached and taught and guided people in over meals and things, and they'd listen to me. And look, my heart was, first you're like, oh, I'm a terrible person. And then you have to realize, okay, my heart was actually good in it. I did have their best interest at heart, and I was going with the very best that I knew to help them. And it did help people in their lives and such. But the overall paradigm, you really do sit there as a leader going, whoa, how much responsibility do I bear for that? And the more you unpack it, you can only come to the conclusion that you yourself were blindfolded, and you yourself were conditioned into things. And you are complicit, yes, but you're also ignorant in it.
The true ignorance is not as much of a derogatory term as I think it is used as. It is blindness.
No, sure, it's blindness.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, when you start unraveling it, you start seeing it. You can't not see it. You can't not see the control mechanism. You can't unsee why people are disgruntled with church, with these methodologies. Because when I speak to friends who want to speak to me about this, it's like,
do you have many from the church that want to speak to you about it?
No, not many. And I do have a few, like 2 or 3, and they're deep relationships that I had, and actually they're all from Australia.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think part of it because we had a smaller church of like 30 or 40 people, and so there was a closer connection. And these people are not connecting with me because of church. We are friends. We are deep friends.
And it comes
so
up.
It's different, yes. And so one of the things that I'll often say to them is, all of those years in Western Christianity, all of those years where I was left wondering, why is God not doing this for me? Why is he not opening that door? Why is he not protecting me from this? Why am I sick? Why am I this? Why am I that? Trying to figure out if you're in your purpose, trying to figure out if you have sinned, why you can't get yourself to, and now I'm speaking to Christians really, why you can't get yourself to spend that 1 hour devotional time every day. All of these things, all of the struggles, the stress, the anxiety, the loneliness, the depression that you still have as a Christian, and nobody can give you an answer for other than, I'll pray for you, my brother. And yet all of those things, since I've left Christianity and started discovering the power of being present and what consciousness really means and what Jesus was actually trying to show us in terms of being in a human experience, fully connected to the divine, but operating in a human realm. All of these things, I just have so much more headspace, not trying to figure out who and where and why and how God is. And just understanding that I can live in the mystical side of not knowing what this immense divine being is exactly like, and just enjoy being human and enjoy being spiritual and enjoy being free, and know that if I do believe in the divine being that I think we should, considering our intricacies and our beautiful emotions and this incredible design that we carry, then certainly that God is a lot more accessible to me than through a narrow paradigm of, frankly, a model that has only been around for 800 years, 900 years, and we're looking at a history of 22,000 years of proven human organized civilization. And I can break that down more, but you know.
Well, one question just before we get onto that is that's interesting to me, because I'm I'm intrigued to know what someone who had spent as much time at the depth that you had gotten to within the church spent your time doing. And what I was going to ask is, did you find yourself spending a lot of time still trying to figure out what God's message was and what God was? Was that where you kind of lived a lot emotionally?
Lots of time, mate. Lots of time. I can't
Right.
even. I can't. Look, people will not like this word, but some of those who hear it, it'll immediately click. I'm not calling it a cult, but there certainly is a lot of cultish behavior. When you have one person on a stage dictating your behavior to you based on that person's interpretation of the scriptures, which he believes to be infallible, and that person has been ministering for, say, 30 or 40 years. We take that perspective in Christianity over the vast expanse of humanity. It's a very, very narrow view. From inside the faith, it's everything. It is everything. The Bible is everything. The need to get people saved is everything. It is incumbent upon you. And what you end up doing, and this is why I see conditioning in the church, what you end up doing is giving your time, your resources, resources in terms of talent, where musicians will play for free in these services, not get paid for their talent. And things like that. And I mean, mate, I would be, if I were going on a run or working out, I was listening to a preach. If I was watching YouTube, I was watching a teaching or a preach. If I was at a meeting out, I was at a prayer meeting, or I was at a home group meeting. People I was connecting with were people in the church that I was quote unquote discipling.
And was this because you were constantly searching for something within it, or did you feel as though you were doing something wrong if you weren't living in that space?
I think I got really good at it, and I found a lot of my identity in it. I think we are all, to give you I think we're all searching, and I think the search.
That's what I'm doing here.
I think the result of the search is to be happy searching.
Life's about the journey.
Exactly. So the fact that we have to come up with some definite answer for what happens after this life that we have no way of knowing is actually bizarre.
Yes, that's why the atheists are just as ridiculous as the hardcore religious.
Yes. So I was doing it because I was, I think, trying to find myself. It's a lot of reasons why people do anything spiritual. I was also felt like I was doing God's work. I felt like I was serving humanity, and I felt like I was continually seeking my purpose, though I never felt like I landed that. And yes, I felt like I was obeying. I felt like I needed the affirmation of my leaders. That is a pretty unhealthy concoction, to be deriving the way you spend your life. And so, for me, and I'm not the only voice. There's a lot of voices out at the moment about this very thing, and even the religion of business and such. But it is. That's why I say it's very close to a cultish model, because if you look at how much of your life it takes, I ended up mourning a lot of time spent, a lot of time, and there's a lot of emotional healing that has to come, where you actually can come to a point of going, okay, look, yes, I put all that time in, but I did gain from it. I did do good, and I did receive good. There was good. That's why I say it's not wrong, it's narrow. Now the model is completely broken, but the interesting thing about the church is it's not waking up. It's people are leaving, and it's just carrying on, and it's pretty much going to outdate. Whereas conscious levels outside. So let's talk about conscious levels and being present, right? So
yeah,
the one thing that Christianity does to you is it doesn't allow you to be present.
Okay.
There
How
are
so?
moments of presence where you may be in a prayer meeting or when you having worship and like you feel present, but that is no different to
When
somebody
you're actually praying, maybe.
yeah, and that's no different to somebody connecting with the divine intentionally on a conscious level, with or without a faith.
Sure.
That's what I've come to see. In that moment, you're connecting with the divine. It's the same way I connect with the divine now. It's the same feeling. It's the same thing. But Christianity claims it as unique. And so when you are, it's just so funny. There's just so many thoughts that come to mind about it all.
Yeah, I bet this has been, you're handling it very well, but this has probably been a massive shakeup, right?
It's a big topic, yeah. It's a big shift in life.
Yeah.
It's a big shift in life.
Sorry to change the subject, but do you feel a sense of trepidation and fear by even just coming out with this? Is there part of that that's like, oh man, I'm going to get so much judgment for this?
You know, I'm very honest and very open. And I think I've grown in a lot of humility through a lot of trial and difficulty. And 6 months into founding the company, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer. And through that process, I really learned a lot of empathy. And a lot of the empathy I had to learn was towards myself. But what it does to you is when you have a moment in life like that where you assess your days and if you're going to make it or not, and what has counted and what hasn't counted, you're much more willing to freely speak about things that matter. Because it's no longer about, look, I come from a background in radio where ego was very important. I've been to the mountain of certain levels of celebrity status, and you know how it is, man. Like ego is important, and it's very hard to do that job without an ego. Because you have
you're not really welcome.
No,
they don't know how to handle you in that space if you don't have one.
Yeah, totally. And so dealing with that ego through empathy, where I am right now, I have no ego about this. I have no ego about anything we're doing, really. And so, I mean, people will hate a lot of what I'm saying, but to be absolutely honest with you, bro, because I've just said how honest I am willing to be. It was our conversation yesterday, speaking about doing this podcast, that I actually, for the first time, thought to myself, okay, maybe I shouldn't be discounting all of my previous experience in Christianity, and maybe it is part of my journey, and maybe it is part of my voice in terms of continuing to seek real connection for people, and identifying some of these conditioning factors. And the two spheres that I have is these two spheres, as I've mentioned, tech and religion. And so this is probably the first time that I have taken this stance to speak publicly about these topics, because I do feel like I have an educated voice on it. And I also do feel that many that might speak against me now or hate on me now for this or that will actually at some point realize the truth, as I did. Because if I did, many will.
Yeah, well, you were deeper than most.
Yeah, I mean, you live with, you got to realize, like with us moving countries and stuff, you also realize that most of the people in your past know you as that person.
Yeah, I'll be honest, man. That's what when we connected again about having a chat and just catching up. That's who I knew you as, and I was intrigued to ask questions about you as a devout Christian. And you were never you always knew the time and place for it, and you never tried to force it down anyone's throat around, or at least I never saw that happen. But I knew that it was a very important part of who you were.
You got to understand, when you're a Christian, like I know that you say that, I think I didn't shove it down anybody's throat. But when you're a Christian, every conversation you have with a non-Christian has a angle to it. Everyone. You can't get it off your mind because it is drummed into you. Every conversation. It's very rare that Christians are with non-Christians that they're not thinking about how am I going to invite him to church, or, when I'm going to speak about God. And if you start listening, you'll hear these little prompts. But it's sad, really, because I think about how many relationships I missed out on and such, because you have that in your mind. Yeah, you have it in your mind all the time. All the time, you have it in your mind.
I got a funny story about that, actually. And if I'm honest, I've been aware of that. And my journey when it comes to religion and spirituality, let's call these two different things, has been one from the opposite side of things. I came from a place of, as I said, from a young age, I was asking a lot of questions. And I would ask questions in religious education class at school, which was not religious education. It was Christian indoctrination is what the class was.
Yeah, I never thought about that, but that's actually true. We had it too, yes.
Yeah. And look, I know that sounds like I'm a bit aggressive, but the fact is...
And business economics at school was conditioning you to get on the hamster wheel so that you could be a good civilian, keep the economy going. Dude, it's all conditioning. It's bizarre.
Yeah, it's conditioning.
Yeah.
And I say that now because I've said this many times, that I want to have some religious education. I want to be educated on religions. I would love to sit down and chat with someone who knows about the Quran. I want to chat with a Buddhist expert. I want to learn about these things because, I mean, obviously you spent 37 years in there. You ain't doing that because it's all bad.
No,
there's some beautiful gold in there.
Totally.
And I want to try and, mine for the gold. But that's not what I was given in religious education. I was when I would ask questions about things that didn't make sense, I was basically told to stop asking those questions. That's what I was met with. I can't remember where I was going with that.
No, but it's the conditioning is right. Like when you're in school and you're in those classes, and you're told. Now that conditioning continues in church. You're not allowed to ask questions freely.
Oh yes, that's right. That's what I was coming at. Yeah,
right.
It's about because I was, and so I got led down the path of I chose to walk away from all of that and I was pretty much an atheist. I called myself an atheist, and I was listening to Sam Harris and Christopher Hitchens and that kind of stuff back when that was trending.
Yeah,
and I was like, that's. Fuck those guys. Yeah, you win. You win the debate, Sam Harris. Yeah. And you're right and all that kind of stuff, and taking some solace in being on the right side.
Yeah. A lot of pride on either sides.
Yeah, man.
A lot of pride.
Whereas now, after doing psychedelics and having a child and riding the waves of love and joy and challenges that come with a long-term relationship, and becoming an adult, and my relationship and dynamic shifting with my parents, and all the things that I've been through, the constant search for meaning, I've started to really embrace a lot more of what I like to think is the pure essence of religion and Christianity and all religions in general. If I'm honest, I gravitate more towards the Eastern religions like Buddhism. I feel like Buddhism seems to be the most lacking the most holes from the little scouring that I've done. But I have seen what you're talking about and felt how, when I'm around heavily religious people, what I used to do is just not be around them because I was like, oh, I can't handle this. I know you're just going to try and convert me and I can't do it. I felt like every person who went to church was a Jehovah's Witness knocking on my door and just overtly trying to sell me.
Yeah.
And then became more conscious and more tolerant of being like, no, that's okay. That's their belief system, and they find a lot of joy and purpose and meaning in it, and I can go along for the ride, but I don't have to I don't have to go. I don't have to be like, oh, I'm a convert now, I'm there. But I had this situation where I was at, it was a friend who lived quite close to us, and she was friends with my wife, and I was at Bunnings at the hardware store.
Oh, good old Bunnings.
Yeah, Home Depot.
Get one of those. What do we have on the outside? What do we have? A sausage. What do we call
it? The sausage sizzle.
Oh, sausage sizzle, mate. Yeah, mate. Sausage sizzle. Yeah. Little Saturday,
Yeah, mate. I always ask him how many snags are you going to move today? Probably about 900 snags today, brother.
Yeah, what does Bunnings smell like? Snags, mate.
Yeah. So I'm at Bunnings. Unfortunately, there was no sausage sizzle that day, which was disappointing.
This is just turn around and go home, mate. Just turn around and go
what's
home.
the point? If I don't get fed when I'm trying to buy a light bulb, what's the point?
Forget that.
So I'm leaving, and this woman that we know, our friend who lives nearby, she's very deeply religious, deeply Christian, and we're having a chat, and these things come into the conversation, these little parts where she's dropping hints about she's being really positive about me and what I'm doing in my life, and she asked if she can pray for me. I was like, sure. That my thought process was that holds a lot of meaning to you, and for someone like her, that's a massive. I was thinking this is just a huge compliment. I can't, what a blessing for someone to want to give some positive intention towards me. So I was like, sure. Younger me would have been like, oh, I don't want to do that. No. So There we are. We went with it, standing right at the entrance of Bunnings with her eyes closed, and she's got like her hand on my chest, and she's saying a prayer out loud as people are walking in and out of Bunnings. And I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to go with this. I've done magic mushrooms. This is fine.
Yeah.
And it was, I could feel people passing us as this was happening. And I was very aware of that, but I was also trying to be very aware of the love and the very kind things that she was saying to me and what that meant to her and trying to process what that meant to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely knew that a big part of it was her trying to get me to come to church. And that just wasn't going to happen, because there's just fundamental things that I think that you're speaking to that I agree with.
So in the story, sorry, I don't know. Were you?
No, that's basically it. It was a very interesting experience and moment for me. And I kind of went home and told my wife, and she was like, "Oh, wow, that's pretty weird." Yeah.
I've been that person praying for other people in public,
right?
Many, many times,
right?
So it is wonderful when a human wants to connect with you and give what they believe is of value to you.
Yes,
but in your story holds the paradigm. So there's that moment of connection, and then followed by a model of needing to get this person to church. Disconnection enters.
Yes.
Right. So that is the problem. That even when Christians pray for people, there is wording and dialogue that is conditioned into you that you use. You don't have to deliberately use it, but you use this language all the time. And it's usually often quite different language to what you'd use in your everyday life.
Do you mean like manipulative language or just specific Christian language?
That's a good question. It's Christian language, but it can also be manipulative. So if I know that you are not a Christian and I'm praying for you, I might be inclined, because I'm human, to pray something along the lines of, I really just pray that Mark finds you, and that this is deliberate, that we have come across each other today. This is meant to be. You orchestrated this, God. I prayed for a bald man with a beard. Here he is. And then after that prayer, I might say, man, this seems like a meaningful thing. Like, maybe you should come to church with me on Sunday.
You're saying exactly what she said, apart from the bald man part.
Right. Okay. So this is funny. So this is the thing, and probably most of the Christians have left this episode already. If you haven't, then hang on there. I've got something for you. But mate, that is exactly it. That is the paradigm that sits right in that moment, is that Christianity, by its very intent of gathering people in an exclusive order in order to receive a certain reward, provided you're in that order, is literally dangling a carrot in front of you for an outcome one day.
Not
Right?
now.
Not now. And what that does to you is it makes you live in the not yet. It makes you live in the present, because all of your actions are determined by heaven one day, salvation one day. And what that means is
makes you live not in the present.
And when I'm standing in that car park praying for you, I'm actually not present with you. I'm actually doing the mission.
Projecting.
I'm not actually with you. And so the thing for me is, since leaving Christianity, is what does it mean to be present? Because if we only have one life, and the future is not yet and not real, it's not real because it's not yet, and the past is not real because it's gone, all we have is the present moment. And I found that in Christianity, there is very, very, very little time spent on the present moment. And the moments that are spent on the present moment, like in worship or like praying for somebody to get healed or something like that, where you're really present, you're feeling what Christians are saying, feeling the Lord present, you're feeling the divine, you're feeling the universal Christ, the Spirit of the Creator present. Those are the same moments that will be felt in many different religions or outside of religion when connecting with the divine. Christians label it that it happens in worship and it's through a particular methodology or Jesus or such. But the reality is that there are many even healings that happen outside of Christian faith. And it's pretty much just being in that divine moment. And so, of course, when their consciousness is focused on the divine flowing through them, yes, of course, the divine can flow through them. Of course, God can operate, maybe not even through them, maybe just in the moment. I don't know how it works. We should be okay that we don't know. But I know people get healed in all faiths. So there must be something there. So, but the problem is that all the time that you're angling towards this future carrot, on a conscious and even a subconscious level, you're not living in the now. You're not living in the present time. You're not living your life. You're not here. And if there's anything that Jesus taught us that we have neglected in the church, is that here is a person that's living a human experience, but exhibiting what it's like to be a human with complete divine engagement and connection, consciousness. And that lesson from Jesus, we don't focus on. We only focus on the one day through him, crucifixion, deliverance, heaven. That's what we focus on. Future possibilities. And that just, it's the same as a social media conditioning. Keep you living in the unreal versus being in the moment, actually real with people. And I do a pretty amateurish job explaining it because I'm still on this journey. And I want that to be clear that I'm not an expert on this side of it. But I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot from authors like Richard Rohr, R-O-H-R, The Universal Christ, which is a very good one if you're a Christian or if you're considering or if you've left Christianity. It's a great book to give you some understanding around it. Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, about being present, such. He even quotes Jesus and such and puts it in context and such. And then the Netflix documentary Ancient Apocalypse, where we must start considering that if there's 22,000 years of human organized civilization, and for the most part Christianity only considers 6,000 years of that human life, actually, more realistically, they consider 2,000 years because we focus on the New Testament. Actually, we probably only focus really on the last 1,200 years of the Bible as absolute truth. Actually, come to think of it, we probably only focus on the last 800 years of church history. Although if I think about it more, we probably only focus on our denomination. Perhaps we actually only focus on our favorite preacher within our denomination. So now we're back down to the 30-year ministry perspective. Possibly that's a good length of a mature ministry out of 22,000 years of human history. Could I put it to you that is perhaps something we should consider a different paradigm for? And perhaps if we are so generous as to consider 2,000 years and go back to Jesus, and his message is certainly waning now, or certainly we're discovering more and more that we have less and less clarity about it, is it conceivable that out of the previous 2,000 years to that, there was perhaps another so-called Messiah that brought a message perhaps the message only lasts a certain amount of generations? Could there have been multiple Messiahs? I don't know, but isn't it a question, if we put so much emphasis on a single Messiah coming 20,000 years into human history and neglecting all of those before, shouldn't we maybe consider that God is more loving than that? And it maybe doesn't all be all and end all on some exclusive prayer that you pray in a church and a tag that you carry for a religion that gets you into a place called heaven? I don't know, man. I just think that's why I say it's narrow. I think there's just much more to it.
Wow, yeah. Just to play, for lack of a better term, devil's advocate, I'd like to talk about the positives from Christianity and religion in general. If we look at, what the kind of thinking that you and I are exploring right now, the kind of ideas we're exploring is, let's face it, something that comes from the luxury of having a safe living environment arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
We're here in our homes, we're comfortable, we've got food, we've got all the resources, physical resources that we need for physical existence.
Mm-hmm.
So we feel safe and comfortable to explore ideas. Now, where devout religion really in the countries where it really is prominent seems to be countries where those things are less prevalent, and to me that makes a lot of sense, because if you got to work just to feed yourself and your family,
mm-hmm.
like hard to make that a reality, I could definitely see how that could be a pretty hopeless existence. Whereas if you then inject in a belief system that fills a lot of those gaps, fulfillment I can definitely see how fulfillment will increase.
Yeah.
And I can't see any holes in that argument. I can't see any problem with that. That's a beautiful thing. And I know that there are statistics where in certain countries, people who have strong religious beliefs are on average happier, whatever that means,
mm-hmm.
than people who do not. So that's an interesting thing. And I think that again comes back to this whole premise of this conversation, connection. If you
mm-hmm.
go somewhere with other humans, or even at home with your fellow family, and you connect about something, whether that thing be about your favorite soccer team or God and the teachings of God, it's the end result is connection.
Yeah. So, Mark, as a Christian, now that you are one, all right.
Yes.
As a Christian, I would prefer it if you didn't spend all of your time with unsaved people.
Right.
Okay. I would prefer it if you actually spend time, the majority, with people in the church that can feed you and help you understand more things. There's probably a lot of friends in your life you need to cut out that are bad influences. And by doing that, they'll probably understand that, that this is valuable and Jesus is the way and they should come to church with you. So let's not forget that every form of conditioning has control parameters. The problem with the church is that it is deeply psychological. But to your point, there's two things I've made notes here from what you said. The one is, like, to your point, are there holes in it? Yes, there are holes in it. Here's the hole, right? Is that majority of the time you are spending your life with other Christians.
Yeah.
Majority of that.
The rest of the world doesn't really exist outside of that.
Majority of that time spent is actually spent in meetings, in church events. Okay. There's not a large amount of connection of Christians in their real life. So you're seeing people on a Wednesday night or a Sunday that you only see on a Wednesday and a Sunday. Those people often don't know the real you. They often haven't been in your home. They're not friends. You don't socialize really. You only see them then. So that makes it very easy to hide as well who you really are, right? On top of which, if you are going out with other people, as we've spoken before, that are not Christians, are you truly present? Because if you're always angling or judging something they say, and it's not deliberate. This is just what you've been raised in. You hear it all the time, that you should frown upon these things, or you should maybe this way. You'll do evangelistic courses to train you how to answer certain answers and how to this and this. And the intent is not to manipulate into the church. The intent is to get you towards Jesus and salvation. We must understand that Christians fully, wholeheartedly believe that your soul's going to hell if you don't accept Jesus.
Yeah.
This is the narrative. So the intent is pure for the most part. Now, up at the higher levels, I don't know how corrupt it gets. I know there are a lot of pastors that have to protect their salaries and such. So, yes, there are holes in it. Yes, there are good things. Absolutely. But are they exclusive to the brand of Christianity? No. Is connection exclusive to Christianity? No. Is spiritual discovery exclusive to Christianity? No. Is healing exclusive? No. None of the things are exclusive until you come to salvation. And that is a whole nother thing. And there's a lot of guys that write things about why salvation is not actually, salvation was not actually in the original faith before the split in the 1600s. It was a construct put in. So,
oh wow,
that's a whole nother thing. But that is the core premise, right? But outside of that, it's just yes, there's a lot of holes to poke in it, but it's not always intentionally deliberate by people, and that's why somebody can listen to this podcast and go, "I don't believe what he's saying because I'm a Christian. I'm a lifer Christian," and that's fine. You're free to do that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying you're narrow. And also remember the source. Like I have no reason to actually have this conversation. I could move on from my life and be quite happy. The only reason I'm having this conversation about this topic is because I feel I bear a responsibility for human connection. Right? That's what I feel. And if I see it, I say it.
That's the path you're taking. That's the path you're taking by going down.
But you're right in what you say, third world countries and such. Yes, I come from a third world country. There's an element of survival that does require you to, on some level, connect with other humans. And the church is a place like that for people to connect and feel that they have a place they can run to in case of emergency. There's a lot of that. But also, third world is very spiritual. You are a lot closer to the earth. I live in America now. Like I know, like I go back to Africa and you're a lot closer to the earth. It's a lot more natural. You can feel it. There's something. You can't even, you put your feet on that ground. It's like, oh, there's something electric. Even non-Africans will go there and feel it, because it's got that natural thing about it. But let's not kid ourselves. When you go to the middle of Africa and you have a black African preacher on a stage in the full midday sun wearing a 3-piece suit, the only reason he's doing that is because he's been conditioned to be like that by American Western Christianity. That guy doesn't wear that. Yeah, and nobody in their right mind in Africa wears that on a stage. But they do because it's part of the conditioning. This is what you look like as a man of God. Furthermore, people will rave and go, oh, wow, look at this crusade through Africa. 1 million people attended. Yeah, what they don't tell you is that next week, a Muslim evangelist went in there and they also got 1 million people. The same 1 million people. And you know why that happens? Because there's fuck all else to do.
Wow.
Why wouldn't you go hear some music and hear a man talk and be with your people?
Yes.
So there's a lot of there's a lot of shrouding.
Saying that your point of connection is not exclusive to Christianity or any other religion is a very valid point. If in an individual's life it is the best way to achieve connection, great. I get it. Go. I completely understand. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But in a lot, that's not the case for a majority of folks.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, even as I dismantle a lot of this with other friends, there are conversations. It's a different approach. Like I have a friend who has these conversations on a theological basis and believing scriptures, not believing scriptures, dissecting stuff, all of that. And that's helpful for some people to be able to do that. For me, I'm not that approach. For me, I think simplicity is key. And for me, I think the importance of learning how to be present in yourself in a moment, authentically enjoying this moment right now, because that's all you have in real life, is an absolute priority. And learning to do that is very difficult under a strict religious model. And I know all the evangelicals, if you're listening, you're like, well, we're not religious. Okay. Sure.
You know what? That makes me think of, do you know who Terence McKenna is?
No.
So Terence McKenna, he's passed on now to wherever he's gone to. He was a psychedelic evangelist, shall I say, in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. He was basically the pioneer for psilocybin mushrooms and other psychedelics, DMT and ayahuasca. And one of the things that he would do he would basically do podcasts back then, before they were podcasts. He would go around the world and give these talks. And they were relatively interactive, but he was just such a wonderful speaker that he would just talk for hours. And he'd be stoned out of his mind. Well, or should I say stoned into his mind, because he became so connected.
That's right.
Yeah. Where he would be able to just go on these thought journeys of what the meaning of life is and what existence is. And one of the things that he had, this very interesting manner of speaking, and I think it was probably because he was so stoned, but one of the things that he would say about religion, that kind of thing, he'd be like, nobody knows what's going on. If you wanted to say that Christianity or bullshit, nobody knows. To say that you understand is like one grain of sand telling another grain of sand what's happening.
100%.
And one of the things, the best one is, the only thing that's real is the direct presence of felt experience. And that quote plays in my mind quite often. That thing about the psychedelics and not psychedelics, nature is where these psychedelics have come from. That's where he had gotten that from. And that has always resonated more deeply with me than anything that I have learned from a religious teaching, is that the direct presence of felt experience is the only thing that is real. You can tell me that something is real, but it makes more sense for me to believe what is real from what I know to be real from my experience.
From experience, exactly. Now, look, a lot of Christianity is not based on your own experience.
Right.
Okay. We must just understand that. So,
and I think that in itself is probably why I have always kept it at arm's length.
Yeah. So, yeah, I understand that. I mean, you just feel what you feel, and then, but yes, I mean, look, I know it sounds like anti. Let's not look at that way. Let's not use our paradigm of the disconnected world that we live in to form a rhetoric that says, oh, this guy spoke against church and against Christianity. And no, I'm not speaking against anything. I'm actually speaking for you. I actually want you to be connected. I want you to be whole. I want you to be healthy. And my experience has highlighted certain things that I'm sharing with you that in my world did not serve me to be present and connected. I mentioned earlier, but I don't think I finished the sentence, is, all the anxiety, the stress, the loneliness, depression, all of that I tried to deal with during Christianity. I never found an answer for that, I never found it. And I was in deep. And yet only a couple of years out of Christianity and pursuing presence and the divine being, the universal Christ, that we are all connected to and that we have that flows through every living thing, whether you're saved or not saved, or whether you're a tree or a human. Obviously, distinctly different expression through humans, but that presence, that new understanding has solved anxiety, loneliness, depression that I carried for decades. Now, how much of a theological discussion do we need to have to convince you? You know, what tricks, what ponies must we pull out? There is evidence in my life. Is this not what we see in the Bible? First person witnessed evidence of healings and such. It is still happening in our modern age. And whether we're talking about social media or politics or religion or whatever, we must recognize that in a world of conditioning, and the church wasn't always bad, right? It's evolved over time as humanity has fallen to our own ego and our own pride. I think church was, although I say that, but I'm immediately reminded of the Crusades and, burning people at the stake and such. So maybe it was always a problem, but
that's not good.
That's not good. That's not good. Yeah. That's not the kind of barbecue we're looking for here. So my point is, like, no matter which avenue of conditioning we speak about, there's one common thread. You as a human being living in a human experience as a once-off opportunity right now to be present, bear the responsibility for what you allow to condition you. By listening to this episode, you have been made aware, and it is now on you. And if you want to carry on that road, then that's fine. You're free to do that. I don't, in Christianity, I always felt like I needed to change people. I don't feel that. I'm completely free of it. You're free to live your life, and we're both human, and we should be able to connect. And that aside of all of these paradigms, which are so finite in the great scope of time,
just on
it's
that,
just for you to be free.
That is so interesting. I completely mirror that, and that has always been what has held me back from having deep relationships with deeply Christian and religious friends that I know, because I've never really felt the desire to change people, to change you. If that's what you want to do, exactly, you're entitled to live your life however you want to live your life. But I didn't feel that was reciprocated.
Because it wasn't.
Right. Well,
look. I know we're painting all Christians with the same brush. Like, I get that. Like,
it's more complex than that.
Yeah, because humanity is complex. Yeah. So I get that, but I will say that for the most part, there's a reason why you felt that way.
Yeah.
And so in your searching, I know you mentioned you're interested in searching, different religions, different things, and that's good. That is good. But recognize that with a massive, massive divine being, God, if we call it God. See, language is difficult because the word God can be negative for some people and positive for others.
Yes.
So we get hung up on things. If we say you're spiritual, that can be negative for some people. To a Christian, saying that you're spiritual is a negative thing. It means, because you would say you're a believer or a Christian.
Right.
But spiritual is like some fluffy thing out there.
Okay.
It's like you're basically who we are now. So,
right.
Anyway, but yeah, man, you just got to understand, like, how can we understand a being of that absolute size? We have to, at our core, recognize that we cannot. And when there's a movement preaching that we understand God and know God's ways, come on, guys. What are we saying? Yeah. What are we saying?
What does that mean?
How can you know that? Then you have to fall, for Christians who understand this, you have to fall into systematic theology then, that God acts the same way every time, procedurally. This happens, therefore this happens, therefore this happens. That is the study of systematic theology, which is absolutely ridiculous, because we know God doesn't act the same way every time. It's a big conversation, but it's much. Can you not just live with the mystery? Can you not live knowing that?
I think the answer for some folks is no. It's too hard. It's too challenging.
That's why I thought you did you guys had a fascinating conversation about psychedelics, about the way it related to preparation for death and how many cultures do prepare for death. That is fascinating, man. I've never heard it said that way before on the podcast with Evan.
Right.
Really interesting. I've often thought about sleep in that way. Yes. Like every night when you practice going to sleep, you're actually practicing for death. And what I loved about what Evan said is, what if death ultimately could come where you're not clinging on and holding on and trying to not go, but you actually are ready and prepared and actually even hopeful. of the experience, that would be quite something, man. That would be, that just makes sense, right?
I think that is the place that we all would want to get to, but you cannot even fathom that if you don't spend any time contemplating death, your own death, your loved one's death, which again is this inevitable thing that's going to happen to anyone you have ever met, including yourself. It is the unavoidable, the epitome of unavoidable things.
Yeah.
But yet we just spend zero time thinking about it and talking about it, and the time, well, not zero, but the little time that we do spend thinking about and talking about it is as a failure, especially within the medical system.
Right.
Oh, we failed. We couldn't save him, her. We failed. It's what do you mean?
Yeah, dude. It's wild. And you also, being a dad, mentioned the profound. I don't know if you spoke about the moment of the birth of your daughter, but I know that many have. I don't have kids yet, so I know that many have spoken about that being the most profound moment of their life, often, where life happens, where birth happens. Surely then the second most profound moment of our life, spiritual experience, is death. Because what can be more spiritually profound than the consideration of crossing into the spiritual realm and leaving everything physical behind? And yet we don't consider it. We don't think about it. Yet it should possibly be the pinnacle of our spiritual lives, is that moment.
I completely agree. You know what? Something that I'm really proud of is that I was as present as I was capable of being for that moment and for the process of the birth of my daughter. I was there with my wife every moment, apart from the 15 minutes when I'd almost passed out and was lying on the floor, but I was still conscious.
I would have been me. I would have been out, man. I don't do well.
Yeah, neither do I. I honestly, man, something was with me because I lasted way longer than I normally would. And it was when the nurses had missed the vein when they were trying to give her fluid.
Oh, no, just stop. Just move on.
Blew up.
Edit this out. Edit this out.
I'm going, babe.
Can't do that. No.
Yeah, but I can't.
No.
I came back and I was good to go. But I'm really proud of myself for how present I was with her and that moment. And not, being somewhere else or I was there and I held her and oh man, just the deepest level of connection that has ever existed for me in my life was that moment. And therefore I also want to be able to be as present for the moment when I die.
Yes.
Now I don't know what it's going to be like. I don't know if it's going to be some horrific accident or if it's going to be a long drawn out painful illness or if it's going to be me passing in my sleep as an old man with my loved ones around me.
Yes, take that one.
I'd like to take that one. Yeah. Yeah, that's the goal.
I'll take that one for 500.
I'll take that. I'd like option C, please. But I want to be able to go, if it is in a horrible accident when it's coming at me without being expectant, I want to be able to go, oh, here it comes. This is the time.
Yeah,
you
want to put a particular expression on your face so you remember it that way.
Yeah. This is my snapshot of me. Here we go. It reminds me, I saw a meme the other day, which was that it was Morpheus to say you can take the blue pill or the red, and then it goes, hang on a minute, did you just take both pills at once? And then it cuts to that picture of that guy like munted, gurning his face off.
That's epic.
Maybe that's the face that I take to my grave with me.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it, dude. It's rich to think about, and that it highlights again the primary connection point. I've already got the backup line for this. The primary connection, we've spoken about connection with yourself, connection with others, connection in the greater landscape of humanity. The primary connection has to be to yourself. It has to be. You have to know yourself, know thyself. You have to journey into your being, that you are a physical human species here in a human body, connected to a divine presence, in and through and to a divine presence. And because on your deathbed one day, it's you being connected to yourself that provides that comfort. It's only you. It's only you going. Now, I know people will say, no, the primary connection is between you and God. Yeah, let's understand something together. And if you don't understand this yet, you will get to a point where you do. Being connected to yourself is a spiritual connection. Being connected to yourself is being connected to the divine. It's not the only connection you need to have, but the life-giving force within you is the divine. So getting to know yourself, being connected to yourself as a priority, and then understanding how that feeds your connection with others is important, because it's very easy for us to be connected to others and never find ourselves. And if we cannot find ourselves, we cannot find others. And if we cannot find others, we cannot survive.
Beautifully said, mate. Yeah, that's going to make a great little tile to put on Instagram.
Yes.
that
Quote me.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully people won't just swipe past while they're trying to consume their social media drugs. That's some good stuff, man.
Yeah. That's the mission.
I think that's a beautiful place to wrap this up, dude.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Great chatting with you.
Absolutely, brother. Like, straight back at you. I'm really glad we were able to connect again. It's been a while.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful for the fact that we did it. I'm pleased to see that beautiful bald head of yours, mate.
Likewise, mate. And and yeah, I love it, man. I love what you're doing. I love the pod, and just your whole journey. You know, I can relate to it because we've seen each other go through struggles, and we've seen each other wrestle with that, you know, and it makes you the person that you are. And I think you and I have both decided to use those struggles and decide to use the depth of that humanity to try and give a valued voice to things that need authenticity in this age. And I hope that people will understand that we're not just trying to create more content. We're trying to create connection. We're trying to create authenticity. And one of the responsibilities we have in this age is to support causes that we believe in. And it's so easy nowadays. I know that we are all flooded with content and flooded with the minutiae of different platforms and such. But if you hear a single podcast from somebody that feeds your life, follow that podcast, give it likes, whatever rating, whatever, you know, geez, I'm already outdating myself from this stuff. We have a podcast as well, Moments That Make Us with Clint Davis. We've got a whole one episode out now. This is a new build. Connect with us on the website at capsule.app, capsll.app. But more than anything, support the causes that you believe are building positively into the humanity you would like to live in, and neglect the others. It's not easy, but this is our mission as a generation. And you think about how our parents never educated us around finances, for example, a generational loss of education around finances. And now we find ourselves in massive financial predicament, not understanding money. In the same way, if we don't fix this connection aspect of engaging in our moments, being present, saving our memories, passing them on, and all the self-worth and authentic connection, and then all the stuff you're doing, the authenticity, all of that, if we don't engage in this, our legacy will be the void of human experience, insight, and wisdom that we leave behind. Is that the legacy that we want to leave to our children? Because that is what we're doing right now, actively.
You're dead on, mate. Beautifully said. I don't know if you and Roshi are planning on having kids, but if you do, they're going to be in really good hands.
Yeah, thank you, mate. Yeah, we plan to adopt.
Beautiful, bro.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Wow,
yeah.
that's really special.
Yeah, that's always been, you know, when I talk about sacrifice in the business and such, you know, it's hard to quantify that. But one of the things was, you know, when we founded and the company was really starting to go well, we actually started the process for adoption.
Wow.
But then had to put it on hold because of the economic climate shifting.
Sure. Yeah.
and having to save the company. And, those are the sacrifices that you often don't speak about publicly because you don't want to sound like you're whinging. But the reality is you want to speak about them publicly because you want people to understand the responsibility that you're choosing to bear through massive personal discomfort and suffering in order to try and bring something positive to the world, like what we're doing with our company. There is a great cost that people are paying in many different avenues. You're paying a cost by creating this podcast, and you need support to help it grow and to hopefully monetize it so that you can actually continue to be in the space and feed goodness into humanity. And unfortunately, the conditioning around content has led to the place that we breeze over stuff as content. It's time to start seeing people doing this stuff, sacrificing their time, their money, their livelihoods, their time with their families, all of the stuff as valuable. As in the old days, we used to value philosophers, we used to value thinkers, we used to value our philosophers and thinkers on our podcasters.
Yes.
And so you need to find those and you need to support them because it is more important than you getting entertained by some podcast. It has to do with you helping feed into the health of the fabric of humanity for now and for future generations to come. We bear the responsibility for our species, and it's time we take it up again.
I completely agree, man. It's interesting that you have just summed up in such a beautiful, eloquent way the way that I feel around being an actor and the acting, the entertainment industry. The work and the storytelling and being on set and working with a crew and the creativity, I just love, and I find so much fulfillment, and I feel like it's healthy and important. But the industry, it's just so toxic. It's horrible. And for me, I've found that I would get auditions for things, and I'd read the script and I'd be like, I don't want to be a part of this. This is a waste of time. It's a waste of my time and it's a waste of viewers' time. This is just a distraction. This is nothing but distraction. And that just happened time and time and time again, to the point where I was like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Because I want to be famous? I don't want to be famous. Not like that. I don't want to be famous at all. It's not authentic. Whereas writing and creating a story, like the script that I was telling you about yesterday, I'm going to send it to you, man. And I'm really keen to hear your thoughts. Now that is like, okay, that feels right. I'm able to curate something that I believe people will find meaning in. And that just lands so much more deeply. And exactly what you were just saying, man, it's about, you got to latch on to those things that carry meaning for you. Because when you are creating something, the reality of it is it's a lot of work, and there's, for a very long time, zero financial compensation. A lot of fulfillment, a lot of heartfelt compensation.
Yes.
And I will keep doing it for free for $0 because I love it and it feeds my soul. But it's a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice.
Yes, well, I think that's the test, right? I know that we would keep doing it for free, but the reality is, and I've always been like this, is that that should not be the standard.
Yes,
it shouldn't be the standard. There's no reason why somebody listening who loves what we're saying invests in my company. There's no reason why they shouldn't. They've heard a big part of my life. So there's no reason why somebody shouldn't reach out and go, hey, Mark, I want to fund your podcast for the next 3 months. There's no reason why that shouldn't happen, because all we're doing is sowing into what we believe will feed a healthy humanity.
Yeah.
And that's what we should do. And you and I, who have come from backgrounds of entertainment and have been up that mountain and are doing this, should actually, it's not that we need recognition for what we did before and the skills that we carry into this. It's what we've become. It's that we've been there, we've been through the trials, and now we feel that the message we carry now is even more important than a commercial radio role or a big gig on a film set. The message we carry now is authentic. Like you said, it's real, and it's gone through much fire of life testing in our lives, and that is what we're bringing at great cost. So we are choosing to engage. We could go get jobs in those industries right now. I know we could. We could go work on other podcasts right now, but we are staying this course because we believe there's enough good people out there to support us and enough people for us to reach with an authentic message like this. And now, like, now we've gone so long and it's so great. And I love doing long form. And now I do need to pee, despite you asking me in the beginning of the episode if I needed to or not. So, I mean, what am I going to do? Yeah. Now I'm suffering.
Hey,
now I'm suffering.
and for lack of a better term, amen, brother.
That'll preach, baby. That'll preach.
Yeah, I'm a believer. Yeah, man.
Yeah, dude.
Awesome. Let's let's hang more. I'll see you real soon. Thanks for coming on. I love you, brother. Thank you.
You too, brother. I appreciate it. And thank you. And thanks everybody for listening. Don't take it for granted. I did for many years and I don't anymore. So thanks for spending your time with us.